Hello, and welcome to Next Level Love Stories, where we take a behind the scenes look at real life relationships to share the truth about what this adventure of love can look like and what it really takes to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Jenny Wallach.
And I'm Calvin O'Seely. And together, we're the founders of Powerful Love Relationships and the creators of the 3-step Powerful Love method for transforming relationships. Today, we are really excited to welcome Bill and April Little.
Bill and April have celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary this year. They
Congrats.
they married young and have done a lot of growing and learning to be a couple while also juggling higher education, a law career, entrepreneurship,
Well,
and eventually 4 children.
wow.
We might know a thing or two about how big a deal that is. It's a really
The
big
4
fucking
kids
deal.
part,
I
not
mean,
the lawyer
I
part.
mean,
Whoa.
there's a lot. It
Yeah.
really is a lot. But so this power couple, friends, their commitment to each other and to their marriage has just is so cool. It's led them to so many ways of enhancing romance, connection, partnership, and love over their past 3 decades together. And in recent years, they've even added a new level of partnership, which is business partnership.
Mm.
And as we know as well, like
Yeah.
doing that means the growth and learning in relationship gets to accelerate. To accelerate, not
And,
celebrate,
and
and
celebrate.
celebrate. Accelerate, that's a new word.
Hey.
I want to use it. Um, so they have a system now where they can teach any couple the system, and it's going to enhance, excite, and cement their relationship in a whole new way while helping each person reach their individual and collective goals and dreams at record speed.
Awesome.
Who doesn't want that?
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us, Bill and April. We
Welcome.
know that you are a wealth of learning and information about love and relationships, and we can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So we would love to start with your story. Tell us a little bit about how you found each other and what the journey's been like so far.
Well, it's a long and kind of funny story, so we won't get too deep into it. But we did meet when Bill came to go to school at Texas A&M, and we were both very, very young.
How young is very, very young?
So we met, I was 19 and Bill was
21.
21. Yes, 21.
Okay. So still teenagers.
We actually we started dating a few months after we met. We had become best friends by that time. And we started dating. We dated for 2 weeks before Bill asked me to marry him. And then
Don't throw it in there, Bill.
And then we were engaged for just 5.5 months before we actually got married. Wow. And so we married the same year that we met. And I was a month from being 20 years old, and Bill had just turned 22. So we were babies.
Yeah.
And we really kind of raised each other through our marriage and trained each other a lot on what we wanted in our marriage and what we wanted from a partner.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, you too.
I won't add too much to that, but it's just there's a lot of kind of a backstory behind our relationship as well.
Sure.
Which really kind of cemented in my mind that it was meant to be. But we were young, of course, and maybe a little naive and a little foolish to some degree, I'm sure, being that age. But we just were committed, and that was the biggest thing, is that we were committed. And as every partnership knows, that you have sometimes a steep learning curve, and so we've had to navigate the same struggles and trials that any relationship has to go through. But commitment is the key, I think, just to keep plowing forward.
Yeah. I'd love to hear, though, because I remember myself at 21 and at 19. I'd love to hear what it was that stood out to you about April that made you know that, like, this is it.
Well, it's kind of funny because when I'm naturally shy, and April is naturally more gregarious.
Nah, yeah. Funny
Yeah,
how that happened, right?
right, right. And so we met through our roommates. Actually, our roommates were dating one another, and that brought us in proximity, and we got to spend time together at my apartment or her apartment because the roommates were going back and forth, and we were oftentimes the taxi drivers for the
Yes.
roommates.
Sure.
Um, so just I think that friendship, as April mentioned, that was a key foundation. Is that we did become really good friends at first, and in my mind, there was nothing better than the prospect of marrying my best friend.
Mm.
And we've tried to approach our marriage that same way. I feel like as long as we're always best friends, that this marriage can be successful, and that's the foundation that we want to keep it on. So, and we have done that for 3 decades now.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that the two of you have faced in that friendship, in
Yeah.
that love?
And the growing up together almost, right? In
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would even be able to point to like the biggest challenges. I think the whole thing is a challenge. I honestly just think, and this is what we tell people all the time, marriage is work. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is, at least to my knowledge, there is no such thing as a marriage that does not require you to work at it.
Yeah.
And as much as I adore him and respect him, there's been times I didn't like him very much, and it can vary so much what can test your love. Anything from your own expectations not being met, or actual, we've lost babies, well, pregnancies. We've lost money together. There's any number of things that I could point to that could be, called a challenge. But the truth is that marriage is just, it's work. And when you put the work in, things they feel easier. It's like working out. It's when you work out, you don't, your weights don't get lighter, you
Mm-hmm.
get stronger.
That's
And
it.
that's exactly how it's been for our
Yeah.
marriage. Is the work that we've put in has made it to where now when we face what other people would think was like practically an insurmountable challenge, it doesn't feel like that to us because we've put in the work for so many years to be a partnership, to trust each other, and to be committed to this marriage, that it doesn't feel like that. It feels like we've been lifting weights for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you got buff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, our first 6 years of marriage, we were in school, and so
And in poverty.
yeah, we were
Okay, yeah.
very poor college students.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first 6 years of our marriage, that's how we lived life. And we actually had 2 children along the way during those 6 years. And so by the time I got out of law school, we had about a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and a baby that was a year old. Yeah. So those were very lean and challenging times. And you talk about forcing you to turn inward.
Yes.
I mean, that type of pressure cooker will either break your relationship or it will force you to turn towards one another and hold on to each other for dear life and just keep
They even
going.
say, they actually have like a saying that when you go into law school, don't go to law school married because you'll come out divorced.
Oh,
And we went in married and with a child. So we already had a child when we went in, and then came out with a second child and our marriage intact. And that's not necessarily easy to do. But like he said, there's just things that you have the choice to either turn away from each other, that can cause that to happen, or you have the choice to turn toward each other. And we just continue to turn toward each other.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I also really love about your story is that it is such a lovely illustration of the way that like life is going to keep lifing,
Yes.
right? That there's not like we get through this hard thing and then we reach this place where our marriage is good.
Nope.
it's like we get through this hard chapter, and then we build more muscles, and then we add more weights.
Yep.
And life gives
Sometimes.
us the next challenge. And then we have to grow through that. Our kids change, our careers change, our bodies change, our environment and culture changes, our financial situation. And as life continues to surprise and delight us, and sometimes really
Challenges.
challenge us, right? Like our marriage has to, our relationship has to be able to adapt and
Yes.
flex and learn and move to its next level, right? Like step up
Yes.
to what you're being called into. And that's where that
100%.
commitment comes in, and the
Yes.
consistently deciding to turn toward one another.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, to your point, Jenny, so we got out of law school. I got that first law firm job. And of course, we
Mhm.
went from poverty to actually having some money, which was
Mhm.
nice. And we thought, okay, well, all the problems are solved. Well,
Uh-huh.
little did we know, yeah,
Just a whole new set
yeah,
of
a whole
problems.
new set of problems. Because I was working in a big corporate law firm, and
Mhm.
they pay you well, but they expect you to put in the time.
No, you just trade money for time.
Right.
That's what it
Yep.
Yeah.
was.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of late nights working, weekends working, and we had again these two young children at
Yeah.
home, and then a third child born within a couple of years or so after that.
Mm.
And so those are very, very trying times for our marriage and our relationship, but for different reasons.
Totally different
Just
reasons.
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
different phase of
Totally.
adulting.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
So,
that is so true what you said. You have to be adaptable as a
mhm.
person. And that's, I
Mhm.
think, one of the keys, honestly, to any really good relationship is that it's not just the relationship that has to be adaptable. I don't even think
Mhm.
Mhm.
that's really a thing. It starts with you. So
Yeah.
you have to be adaptable as a human, and
Mhm.
your partner needs to be adaptable. And then that is able to, you're able to then adapt as a couple, as a relationship.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
everything starts with you. And so you have to be constantly working. The thing about marriage is it gives you the opportunity, or
Yeah.
any relationship, not just marriage, but close
Yep.
relationships,
Yep.
they give you the opportunity for so much personal growth if you
Mhm.
take that opportunity, right?
I love
So
that
Mhm.
you
really, and that's what I see
accentuate
a lot, is that either that happens or it doesn't, and then the marriage falls apart.
that. Mhm.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we also, I mean, like, to our credit or his credit, and I will give myself credit for this as well, like, we were always working on ourselves as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a really important element. It's
It's
the
essential.
most important
Yeah.
element, really, because to make a relationship, you're each 50%. So, like, the
Mhm.
more you can come at that as a whole person,
Yeah,
Mhm.
the better.
exactly.
So
Mhm.
100%.
I love your message about not just the adaptation, but like you're also in a way speaking about resilience and
100%.
how important that is, as well as adapting. Like they go hand in hand
One of my favorite qualities, resilience. Yes.
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
success of
Yeah,
relationship. So good.
100%.
And that, and like I also want to draw out this point you're making around like the self work that it takes,
Mhm.
because and I'm sure you all know because you work with couples too. Um, so often people are in the space of like when their relationship's not working, they want to work on the relationship,
Right.
which in translation often means I want my partner
To do some work.
change or be
Yes.
different, right?
Right.
And so like the work on the relationship to build that resilience, to build that flexibility, to build those muscles to get through things together, that's inner work.
Right.
That's self work.
Mhm.
That's the relationship work. It's the who am I in the context of us?
Yes.
Who am I being in this relationship? Who
Who
am
am I
I
bringing in? Right.
being?
Yes.
And I love that, like that's been part of your success, right? Is that, and thankfully, because you were growing up together, and if you had that commitment, not just to the relationship but to your own personal growth
Yeah.
along this journey, where when those opportunities come along, You leaned into them. You
Yes.
took
You
them.
took them. I love how you're like so specific, like drawing out like these are opportunities.
Right.
That's so good. Yeah.
If you use them that way, right?
Yes.
Or they're opportunities for destruction. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like that's it. You
Yeah.
just get to choose.
Choose your path.
Yeah.
I will say, because again, we were very young and we had very little, life experience kind of behind us. And obviously there's some things that you just don't have the experience of until, like, we didn't know what kids were going to be like, or what
Oh,
each
for
and
sure.
every child was going to be, because they're all different, right? You guys have
Mhm.
multiple children, they're every single one of them is different. No,
Oh, yeah.
one doesn't help you raise the next one. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's
you have
crazy
to-
like that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But there were definitely years where, unbeknownst to him, I put pressure, I put responsibility on him to create a certain type of happiness for myself. So if he didn't behave in a certain way, or didn't show up a certain way, or wasn't home at a certain time, or whatever, it affected my happiness.
Yep.
And one thing that I have really learned as we've, of course, gotten older and like more life experience and more self-work is that if I don't put that kind of pressure on him, if I create my own happiness, our relationship is 1,000 times better, because that's not his responsibility. Yes. So giving him a responsibility that was never his, and asking him to do something, which, by the way, I never actually asked him to do. It was just, in my imagination. But like now I create my own happiness and I take care of my own happiness. And Bill is a whole person on his own. And so to bring two whole people into a relationship is like magic. It's there's like an expectation that's completely removed. That's a totally unfair expectation to begin with.
It is.
And it just creates just a so much better relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. It gets you out of the place where you're blaming your partner for not feeling good, and make the choice, because that's the only place. Like, you can't feel your partner's feelings for you. Like, they're your feelings, so you're logically the only one who can do anything about it.
Yep, exactly.
So if I heard April correctly, she was just saying that I should not be able to read her mind. Right. We're on record. We're on record.
Yes. many years in the beginning of our relationship, that thing, and I'm sure you see it when you work with couples. I see it all the time, is that, like, if he loved me enough, he would know.
Yeah.
And I did that for a lot of years, where, well, if you loved me enough, you would be able to basically read my mind. You would know what I need.
You would be paying attention enough to connect those dots.
From her.
Yes, exactly. And that is just such nonsense. And I am so glad that now that I've recognized that many years ago, but I'm able to teach my children, my daughters, who are all like married. Well, 2 of them are married, and they're all, that age now, that, don't expect that. Just say what you want. Just verbalize it. Verbalize it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
But it's that thing, and we're all trained by Hollywood that's the way it should be,
Exactly. That's
Oh my
it.
gosh. We can't even watch movies anymore because of that.
I'll just add to that and say that I think that one of the biggest areas that we've evolved over the years and improved in is communication.
Oh yeah,
by far. Yeah.
Yes.
Because when we were young, sometimes you get into an argument like every couple does, and you internalize it. You may not talk to one another for a little while. All those things that couples go through, and we've gotten better through a lot of practice, I guess you could say. That you just need to be more open with your feelings and communicate more openly. And you tend to get through those arguments or disagreements a lot faster.
Yes.
And you tend to get back on a nice, playing field a lot sooner, and life's better overall.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I find myself, I don't usually do this, but I'm feeling called today. I find myself wanting to play devil's advocate because y'all are relationship experts too. And I hear the voice of resistance of maybe previous me showing up on these 2 points, right? I'm responsible for my own happiness, and you need to be open about your feelings. Talk to your partner about what you want. So the question I want to ask is, to the first point, you're in charge of your own happiness. What if your partner is doing something or not doing something that makes it feel impossible to be happy? Like they're not meeting a need, they're not listening to me, we're not having sex, they don't open up.
Sure.
How can
I
I be happy when my partner feels?
Yes. So I think that there are maybe 2 points that I would make about that. One is it is never, in my estimation, in my opinion, in my experience, it is never impossible to be happy in the face of anything. So it's a choice
That's a
that
belief
you
shift.
have to make.
Mhm.
And you have to, again, you have to find a place where
Mhm.
you can be whole in yourself as a person, completely not dependent upon anything that the other person is or is not doing, or anything that is even going on in the world around you in your immediate world. Like,
Mm.
so that is a practice of inner building an inner world that is like
Yes.
kind of probably a whole nother discussion.
Mhm.
But if you have an inner world that is full of peace and is whole on its own and is happy, is a happy place,
Mhm.
then you can disconnect from anything that's going on
Mhm.
outside of you. You can go to that place within yourself. You can depend upon yourself for your happiness. And
Mhm.
again, that's a lot of work. There's a lot of inner work involved there.
Yep.
So the thing that I would say in the immediate is express yourself as much as you can in a most respectful way. And
Mhm.
that's something that is very much learned, because there
Mhm.
are ways that you can come at an issue or a problem where your partner's immediately going to shut down,
Mhm.
immediately going to shut down, just like you would. You
100%.
would do the
Yep.
same thing. There are
Mhm.
human things, there are words, and there are tones and things like that that the other person's going to immediately shut down. And
Mhm.
then there are ways at coming at things where you create an openness and you create an actual discussion and you express a need that you have without sounding like you're making an accusation. And
Mhm.
so, and again, that's something that's learned for a lot of people. It's not natural to most people to know these
Mhm.
things. And
Yeah.
so I would just say, if you're having those types of issues, you have 2 types of work to do. One is you need to learn to communicate in a really highly effective way.
Mhm.
And the other is you need to do some self work
Mhm.
so you can build that happiness. Because let's just say your relationship is never healed and that person is not your responsibility to heal, for one thing. But let's just say they just are not, they've got problems that you can't cope with anymore or you refuse to deal with. Then your relationship falls apart. Does that mean that you're going to be miserable? Because you can choose
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But you could also be happy within yourself to where no matter what happens, you're good. You're
Right.
whole, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
One thing I would add to that is if you're working on yourself and that inner strength and that inner sense of calmness that you need, one, it does help you to have a better frame of mind, and a better outlook about things. But for another, it also helps you to be more grounded when you're dealing with your partner.
Right.
So if I feel content within myself, I'll use that word, then even though my partner may be not doing certain things that I wish they would be
Mhm.
doing, I can approach him or her with more respect, with more empathy, perhaps with more curiosity, I guess you could say,
Great word.
as opposed to being accusatory and putting them on the defensive, which is always going to just throw up barriers.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
starting with yourself helps you to just be a better communicator with your partner.
Yeah. Well, and what you're saying, Bill, leads me to the other, like resistant part, which you really just spoke to, which is I try communicating with my partner and they don't listen. And
Or it always ends up in a fight.
right, or it always ends up in a fight, or it just makes them about them, or they say they're going to change and they won't. And what you're speaking to is, I think, the solution to that, right? Is that, like, if that is the dynamic that's happening in your relationship, chances are pretty high that there is a different, more effective way you could be approaching your partner to share that information. Um, Not to say it's like 100% the responsibility of the sender of a message, but we talk a lot about like talking about how we're talking.
Right.
Right? So like that now you got to move in. If you know that you are approaching this in a really effective way that is a lot less likely to activate defensiveness, and you're still getting that same defensiveness or conflict, then you move into talking about how you're talking and getting curious. What's
Right.
going on with your partner? What's getting in the way? It makes it so difficult to have this conversation, or where is this coming from? And that, to be able to do that, set your own stuff aside to get curious about what's happening with your partner such that they are responding the way that they are. That too requires that inner work, and that decision to turn toward your partner in the face of a challenge rather
Right.
than away. Because it could be like you're doing something that hurts me and makes me unhappy, even though I'm doing everything I can to get through to you and help you understand what's going to make me feel better, what's going to help our relationship. And it's really easy to just like get frustrated and want to turn away. And that's when we actually have to lean in more and maybe
Right.
set our own stuff aside and like anchor into, how do we love our partner? How do we help support them in showing up in the ways that we need so that we
Yeah.
can communicate and get our message across.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And these are such, really, radical paradigm shifts for most people. This is the
Yes.
kind of stuff like I get so fired up about this kind of
Yeah.
stuff in relationships, because it's like these are the ways of thinking about how we do relationships that so many people are missing because they have expectations about how it should be.
Yeah.
That doesn't take so much work, so much consciousness and intentionality, which is really what it
Right.
takes. Uh, and so they just stay unhappy or get frustrated, or their relationship continues to disconnect
Right.
and drift apart.
I think a lot of people too, they just haven't seen another way of doing things. Maybe they
Mhm.
were raised a certain way, they saw these patterns
Yeah.
before,
Mhm.
and they kind of get into these cycles. And once they learn some of these, what I would consider essential skills in
Mhm.
relationships and communication, it is a
Mhm.
game changer. I mean, like you said, Jenny, it's a paradigm shift with your
Yeah.
thinking and the way you approach one another.
I mean, we
Mhm.
didn't see we didn't see this modeled in our parents, for instance. Well, I certainly
Right.
didn't see it modeled in my
Yeah.
parents.
Us either.
And
I didn't
so
even see it modeled in my like education as a couples therapist. Let
right,
me just
not
add
at all.
that.
And I think again, going back blaming Hollywood again, but like that's where a lot of us get our first sort of images of what relationships look like. And
Mhm.
honestly, they're just the most ridiculous thing on the planet Earth. When you think about it, it's like kind of the more damaged a person is in a Hollywood film, the more adorable they are. And
Right.
somebody swoops in as kind of the savior, and then love just fixes everything, and then cut the end of story. But
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, in real life, you actually have to live a whole entire life with that person, like very mundane days and things that,
Mhm.
and challenges and things that come up. And of course, none of that is ever portrayed. But
Mhm.
again, that kind of like idea that the more sort of like hurt and damaged that you are, the more cute you are, the more lovable you are, is already starting off in a very strange place, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yeah. And it gets to that point of like you're looking for that savior, that
Yes.
Mhm.
person who's gonna help you
Thank you.
feel happy and
Whole.
whole
Yes.
and make your dreams come true.
Because
Yes.
I am
And
not
and just
a
falling in
focus.
love, somebody falling in love with you fixes that, which
Yes.
Yes.
is
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very exciting for a half person to finally have another half, but then you've only got one person and not two, and that is not sustainable.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that excitement wears off pretty quick when the pressures of the world start to, have their way.
Yeah. Or when you start seeing those weird little habits that you hadn't seen before,
Yeah.
like there's so many things. And I see, I mean, I have seen many times probably in my own, like when in my younger dating career, where just the smallest thing just ends a relationship because you're just like, but when you're in a committed relationship, you don't just get to go, ooh, I don't like that. Like, let's be done. You get to stay in there and either fix yourself or stand next to someone as they work on themselves,
Yes.
Yeah, and I think our culture though is to not.
Right.
Like easier to throw it away. To say
Yes.
really,
Yes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And I'll say to that idea of like standing next to someone while they work on themselves and fix themselves, I think part of our culture and the paradigm, which is so individualistic, says you have to fix yourself. I'm just gonna stay here.
I'll be here when you fix yourself.
Like you just like, can you figure this out? Can you fix this?
Yeah.
So we can be better.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we say a lot to our clients is that like it is your partner's responsibility to fix themselves. It is not your responsibility. Yes. And the loving thing to do is to support them in their success of that.
Right.
It's not just standing by while they do all their work. It's
right.
having them take full responsibility for their work while also looking at how you might contribute to making it easier, more successful, cheering them on, encouraging them, supporting, right? Like, because you're a team, this is a partnership.
Exactly.
We shouldn't be doing anything, even our own growth work, like in a silo.
Yes. Yes. And you want to be a part of that because to see someone work on themselves and to see someone improve and to see, the growth and the things going on and just even the tiny little incremental things is so thrilling and exciting in your partner. Like it's so cool to watch, and to miss that would be really sad, honestly. To miss that would be a very sad thing. But I think it really solidifies a relationship when you're able to be there and to watch, not just to watch it, but to be a little part of that, like you said, to just even just to be a cheerleader from the sidelines. But what's interesting about what you're saying too is that is such a key part of what we teach in the system that we teach. So we really teach relationships to become partnerships. And there's such a big difference to me, and it's nuanced for sure, but there's such a huge difference to me between being in a relationship with someone and being in an actual real life partnership with them.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the things that we teach so much in our system that we teach is that he's got goals, I've got goals, and then we've got goals together. But on his goals, the question always is, how can I help you? How can I help you? Because I want to be his cheerleader. I want to be there watching. I want to be not just doing my own thing over here and living my own life. I want to be a spectator in his life. Yeah. And then we also have obviously this life that we live together. But it's always, how can we help each other? Because I can be a resource to him. It's not, he's not over here doing his own thing. I'm not over here doing my own thing. We're such a resource for each other. And I just think that that's such a huge part of being an actual partnership.
Absolutely.
That's next level.
One of the things that we've observed and commented on ourselves over the years is we've seen couples who have been married for many years or together for many years. And over the course of time, it's like they grow into a place where they're in separate lives almost.
Yes.
I think it's the natural thing. I think it's a most natural path. That's what happens if you don't make sure it doesn't. If you don't work at it not happening.
Thank you. This is my new soapbox. Our new soapbox, right? In our work, it's like it's great if your relationship is good and you're together for a long time. You don't have serious problems, but if you're not actively investing in leveling it up and growing it, you will find this like slow drift has happened. and you don't know what your relationship is
Mhm.
anymore, or who you two are together, and the passion, the fire, the partnership, like it suddenly isn't there, and you thought everything was good.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that's a problem.
And it's never sudden. That's not how it usually happens. Like
Right. Not
almost
usually.
always it's that exactly what you said. It's that slow drift. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yep.
But if you aren't actively trying to stay together and trying to stay on the same page, that's just the most natural thing. That's just what happens.
Mhm.
And so that's exactly what our work also aims to prevent and also to heal.
Yes.
So even in those relationships that have done that, we're able to really just give them a simple system that
Mhm.
heals all of that and brings them back together to living a life that is super fulfilling and exciting and in a partnership.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
Well, we're at that phase, so just you can use our lives as a kind of a stereotypical type of example, where we have 4 kids, as was mentioned earlier. 3 of those kids are now grown,
Mhm.
and we
Mhm.
have 1 teenager in the house. And
Mhm.
so it'd be very easy, all these years of raising those kids, having those kids under your roof. Those kids were like the glue in many
Right.
respects that kept us
Yep.
together, because we're jointly raising these children together. And as those kids get older and move out, then oftentimes couples will find themselves with no kids in the house anymore, wondering, we have
And
nothing in
nothing really in
common.
common.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
emptiness part.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah, right,
absolutely.
exactly. And so one thing that we are really emphasizing in our quarterly Ever After program is that this is great for couples who are at that phase of life, where they are at higher risk of that drift with nothing in common when their kids are
Mhm.
grown and gone, where this system brings you together and you're working as a true partnership on whatever those big goals and dreams that you have for yourselves are,
Mhm.
going into the future. So
Mhm.
it's a great way that we have found for us to keep our relationship strong, keep us focused outward towards one another, and then together, facing forward to the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and that's really a good segue because we fully believe in eating our own dog food, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
So, like, you're talking about it's how important it is to have goals and, like, because you never really get there. You're always just leveling up
Right.
to what's
There's
next.
always another level. That's my
Yep.
favorite
Yeah,
saying.
it's like, what's next? You're never done, actually.
That's
So,
exactly right.
so turning it back on the two of you, what is it that you're working on? What, because you already have a very next level of love, right? But
Mhm.
like, what's gonna take it? What are you working on to take it to the next level? What is the next level for you all?
For us as a relationship or
Yeah,
for
as a
us
couple,
as
'cause
The whole
people
thing,
or
but
well,
as a
just
well, I
couple.
everything?
mean, yes, and let me give a little context here too, because like y'all are a beautiful shining example of what's possible,
Yes.
and we love for everybody to see that and be inspired by that. And we want to also capture the edge, right? The reality of it, that even for us as relationship experts and coaches and mentors, we're still growing and learning
Oh
too.
yeah.
And so what is that edge for you two? Where are you stretching into? What are you also working on? Because we want not just to name it from a cognitive place. Yes, there's always a next level, but also like, and this is in real life, peel back the curtains, what our next level is going to be, what we're stretching into, what we're learning right now, what we want to how we want to level up our life and our love. So that's what we want to kind of highlight in this question.
Do you want to
Well,
go first?
yeah. So
Yeah.
one thing I think that might be one of the most obvious answers to this question is that we are now, for the first time in our 30-year marriage, we are in business together.
Mhm.
So that's a big shift for us. I mean, my
Yes.
law career is still going strong, and I'm going to be doing that for many years to come. But we're doing our quarterly Ever After business together, and that's going to be something that April's going to be primarily working on that program behind the scenes and doing a lot of the visiting with our clients and coaching and things like that. But it's something that we truly are building together because it's a system that we developed organically to level up our lives. And there's a whole story behind that, which we're happy to get into in terms of we were making a big career change for me, and we use this system as a way to help us navigate through all the big questions about what's next, what should we be doing right now, where should we be moving, which direction should my career go, and all the ramifications that come with those big life decisions. And so through that organic system that was born, by the way, out of a lot of study. So we were so this is kind of, I guess, something else that's very important to mention is that our system of couples working together to turn that relationship into partnerships, it came out of a lot of study. And that was a lot of study together. So we were reading.
We were cramming.
Yeah, book after book after book. And these were a lot of self-improvement books. They were books geared towards entrepreneurs and all the best minds out there. We were just like collecting like sponges, just soaking it in because we needed that knowledge and that inspiration to make these huge decisions. And so in a way, it means we're at a different phase of life, but in a way, it does kind of have some reflections back to those first 6 years of our marriage when we were poor and in college, where we really had to turn towards one another and cling to one another to make it through these difficult decisions to make. So, I mean, we were at a different place with careers and finances and all that. But in some ways, it was just as
But it was all new again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and entrepreneurship is such a journey of growth and expansion.
Yeah.
And trying to do it together, we know how much it invites the relationship leveling up.
Yes. It requires a whole different level of everything.
Yes.
Like a relationship of each of us as people, of tolerance for all kinds of things. And it's been such an awesome growth opportunity, which we have really taken and run with.
Yeah.
One thing I would say to answer your question and get really, really real and raw is that with all the work that we put in, and the two of us have weekly meetings. So this is part of what we teach our couples. We meet together as like we actually sit down and have a meeting, just the two of us, every single week. Like this is like a non-negotiable.
For the business or like even before the business?
Before the business.
Okay. So relationship meeting, not business meeting.
It's all of it.
Yeah.
It's a goals and objectives meeting.
Okay.
And so we talk about our individual goals and our couples goals. We talk about our businesses, where we're at, what we need to do. So we plan our week. And that's where we sit and ask, okay, I see your goals. You see my goals. We have these goals together. What can I do to help you? And then we literally calendar that. So and this is an every week thing. So it's great. It's an amazing system. But what I will say is we are still not perfect. So we've been doing this for about 5 years. And one of the things that both of us just noticed this very week was that we had this really great system probably 6 months ago where we were actually spending a little time together every single morning, and that has dropped. That's dropped off. Like, where did it go? We don't even know. You know what I mean? Like, we can't even say what happened exactly. But we both noticed it the same week. And so we just both said, you know what, let's pick that back up. But this is a constantly evolving process, just like we're constantly evolving humans. Like, we're never going to actually be perfect, but we're always striving to get really, really good at our habits and pick those habits that serve us the best and really just dig in and nail those. But we're not perfect. We're not perfect at it at all. So there's like always, there's always work to be done. Always.
Yes. Thank you. I so appreciate your honesty and vulnerability in this, because I think like it's so easy to put successful couples, successful people, even as entrepreneurs, successful
Yes.
entrepreneurs on this pedestal, right? They have it all figured out. Their life is like all good. They know what they're doing. And now, like, let's demystify this shit.
Right.
Like, we are all still human.
Yes.
Our stuff comes up. We get lax and let things go.
Oh.
We it's hard to keep a
Lives.
habit. Lives. Like, there are differences that create
Yes.
tension that we need to work through, that isn't always pretty when it's
Right.
happening.
Mhm.
Like, that is all so real in this journey, even of next level love.
Yes.
And I think what makes a love next level is having a system, having the know-how of what we're going to do when those things happen.
Right.
So we know how to move through it. So we know how to think about it, where to put that this is happening,
Mhm.
how to use the challenges as opportunities
Yes.
for growth. Even if we're not perfect at it, we know
Right.
what we're supposed to do, and we get to practice that and continue
Yes.
to evolve, practice and evolve, practice and evolve. And that is what keeps us always leveling up, and
Yes.
simply just makes for such a delicious relationship
Yes.
experience.
Mhm.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Well, on this topic of systems, so systems is a well-known concept in the business world.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
everybody knows that businesses tend to thrive when they have good systems in place.
Mhm.
But there is this disconnect that we don't often think about, that we can have systems in our relationships.
Yes.
In your individual life, systems are amazing. So I
Mhm.
used to hate the very word systems, because I'm a creative by nature, and so that sounded very like it sounded
Clinical.
yes, very clinical, very logical and gross. And now I'm like obsessed with systems, because they make your life so much easier
Mhm.
and smarter. And I do love smart. I like lazy. I always like to tell people I'm lazy, but I just
Yes.
like the simple way
Ease.
to do things, right?
Ease. Let's make it all easy. Life is
Yes,
hard
I
enough.
love
Let's make
ease.
it easy.
Exactly. Yes. And when you have a system, just like you said, that you can just go back to, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it makes life so much easier, so much
Mhm.
easier, so much more fun, so much gives you more time for things like fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more energy for it. Because
Yes.
when things are hard, it
Yes.
drains
Yeah.
us.
When
Yes.
things are systematized, it
Yeah.
creates the
Yes.
ease.
Frees up so much
You have more
Yes.
energy.
It's magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are still weeks when, I mean, we're just going different directions and we don't have a lot of time during the week sometimes. But going back to what April was saying earlier, where part of our system is we have those weekly meetings together where
Mhm.
we're planning, talking about our goals and our dreams, and actually planning concrete action steps for that week and for that quarter.
Mhm.
And
And reviewing our
yes,
last
and,
week.
and reviewing. And
Mhm.
Jenny, back to a comment you made earlier about, is it business or is it about relationship? And April said it's both. So
Yeah.
we have found that actually combining them, living one life together, your business, your personal, it's all the same. It's your life,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so don't
Yeah.
silo those things out like that.
Mhm.
So our meetings, weekly meetings, and our quarterly retreats that we go on, we're talking about all the above:
Yes.
business, the personal, family. I mean, goals for our
Life.
children. Yeah, all
Yeah.
these things, and we're not trying to keep them segregated. We're
Mhm.
trying to just approach life in a holistic way,
Right.
but in a very structured way now. And even during those weeks when we really are just going different directions, because I mean, work demands oftentimes will just take me out of town, or I'm in trial, or
Sure.
whatever it is.
Just because life.
Yeah, life
I
happens.
Mhm.
And but going back, and we usually have our meetings on Saturday. That's kind of the day that works best for us. And so we know that come Saturday, it's going to be a time for us to disconnect from all the pressures around us, for us to
Mhm.
reconnect with one another, and to reconnect with what our goals are that we're actually working on. Because life can distract us from those very important goals we have set.
Yeah.
that if we achieve them will help us to level up our relationships, our
Right.
families, and our lives. But those distractions will oftentimes derail us before we get there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this weekly system that we have, it gets you back on track.
Right. So we're basically not ever badly derailed for more than a week,
Yes.
which is great.
It's perfect. That is such gold, and I really appreciate the two of you like sharing this piece of your system, this piece of what you offer the couples that you work with, because as you're talking about it, I can see, and you better believe we're going to have a conversation about how we're going to start implementing a weekly meeting.
We've already been talking about it, but
we have been. It's been in the
You
back, but
just
we
go through our
haven't
program. We'll teach you the whole
done
system.
it.
seriously, coaches need coaches.
We really do. We do.
Oh yes, coaches need coaches
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. But for other folks who like us are excited about what you're talking about, like I want a system to get back to. I want to learn how to level up. Like what are quarterly retreats? What are those? How can people get a hold of you? How can they work with you? How can they get more information about the amazing work that the two of you are doing?
Great question.
people's
So
relationships?
we are Quarterly Ever After on both Facebook and Instagram. And do we have our website? What is that?
quarterlyeverafter.com.
It is .com. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So the name Quarterly Ever After, it's very intentional because our system is based upon quarters, so 3 months at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It is, oftentimes
just like you would in business.
Yes, well, but oftentimes in the business world, you set annual goals.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that's what we do in our lives as well.
Mhm.
Those,
Sure.
for example, those New Year's resolutions. So this new year, I'm going to
Right.
do X, Y, and Z. And that's fine. And if you want an annual goal, that's fine. But break it down into quarter-sized chunks.
Yes.
So that this
And
quarter,
we break it down way smaller
You're
than
right.
that.
Yep.
We break your quarter down
Yep.
into days
Wow.
so that anything is achievable. But it's all based on quarters, like Bill was saying. So
Mhm.
So
Love
those retreats is just an opportunity for the two of us to just get away for a long weekend, go somewhere, and to just spend some time, some good quality time together, some quiet quality time together,
Mhm.
and we build some romance into those retreats as well. So
some fun.
so it's not all planning, writing, planning notes, but we're having some fun and some romance, but getting a lot of work done as well.
Mhm.
Reflecting back on the last quarter, how far we got on those goals that we've set, and then really planning hard for this next quarter. And it's been a miraculous system for us.
Yeah. It's amazing how accelerated so many of our goals have gotten. The things that like he was saying, like sometimes that you'll set these yearly goals and then by the end of the first quarter you've petered out on them.
Oh yeah.
But with the things that when we set a yearly goal, a lot of times by the end of the second quarter, it's
accomplished.
Yeah. And we're like,
oh,
we can set something new now. Like this is pretty exciting. So it's just constantly being in motion towards our biggest dreams and goals, literally daily. Like we have daily needle movers. We're together every week, like we said, meeting and just checking on all of that. And so we're able to just move constantly in a forward direction.
Yeah.
Together,
beautiful.
which is great.
Yeah. And I could see how this can be such a game changer for all couples. And I think like as an entrepreneur, there's this like added bonus of getting into this practice with our business as well. Right. And if you're a couplepreneur, like we all are, to I love that, like integrate, like live our life and make sure that like all of it, all of the dreams, all of the goals are moving forward with intentionality, not just like, I want to do this, it's my goal to do this. Now you're getting into the weeds of like, how are we going to do it? What are the little baby steps that are going to take us there? How can I help you get there? How can we acknowledge my individual goals, your individual goals, and our goals for our life, for our business? it's like so much of what we talk about in our work with couples comes back to an increase in consciousness, right? Like just being conscious and aware of our internal world, of our responses, of our desires, and what we want to do to try to create the kind of relationship and life that we want. And what you're speaking of is a really, I could see, really lovely, effective system for moving that consciousness into clear, directive, actionable like steps that
Yes.
has plenty of room for course correction when needed.
Yes.
Brilliant. It's so
You've
brilliant.
articulated it very, very well. Thank you.
You guys, y'all are onto something really good here, and I
Yeah.
love it. And I'm so excited for all the folks who get to work with you and
Thank
experience
you.
this for their life, because
We love it. We absolutely love teaching this. It has been so fun to watch couples who, didn't really have a lot of direction or sometimes a lot of connection, really, really move into and embrace those things. And we get, a lot of them, they send us weekly updates. Oh, we just did our meeting and we've already crushed one of our goals, and it's just really fun to see.
Yeah. It's fun to get a text message with a couple in a coffee shop saying, we're having our weekly meeting. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So we have one more question that we want to ask you before we wrap up today, which is this. If you had any words of wisdom or piece of advice that you would want to leave our listeners with, whether they're with their partner or just listening independently, what would you want them to hear or take away from this conversation?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. There's this, I think, life's lesson that it's been impressed upon me a number of times over the last 10 or 15 years. And it's something that's very, very relevant to living in our world today, in this modern world, which is so full of distractions. And those two, I think, very poignant points are: one, stop being distracted. Cut out distractions everywhere you can, and be ruthless about it if you have to, but cut out distractions and get to work. Those two things. If you can minimize distractions and get to work on your goals and your dreams, get to work on your relationship, get to work on your family, or whatever you fill in the blank there, you will see just, I think, life-changing progress if you just minimize distractions, stay focused, and get to work.
And just to kind of swing off of that, I think that is actually where fulfillment comes from. So a lot of people, they do a lot of work, or they work really hard, or they think they're working on all the right things and they still lack fulfillment. And I think that fulfillment, where that comes from, is understanding what you actually want, what your goals and dreams are, and actually putting the work into that, putting your energy into that. Because if you can do that, you're like consistently and constantly fulfilled. You don't even have to reach a goal. You know what I mean? You're working towards the goal. There's so much fulfillment in that alone. But
100%.
There's this total confusion about, that there's certain things that should fulfill you, or reaching the goal, any random goal is supposed to fulfill you somehow. And there's just nothing worse than randomness. And we have so much of it in our world. But if we could get some clarity on what we actually want and desire and have a vision for our own future, and then be working towards it, then you're in fulfillment all the time. Yeah. All the time.
Yep. Oh, that's brilliant.
I love it.
Thank you two so very much for this inspiring and insightful and really just
real
conversation about your relationship, about how to create a relationship that is really fulfilling, a life that's fulfilling, that can get through all the things. There's so much gold in this conversation for people to take away. And so I hope that everybody listening has like really, really tuned in or listened to this one again, because there's so much richness here.
Thank you so much for having us. We are thrilled to have been here.
Yes.
Yeah, we really are. And we appreciate the great work that you're doing as well. And for the opportunity to be a part of your audience and to share some things that will hopefully help.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you watching, those of you watching
Or listening.
or listening. Yes. Thank you for tuning in. And we hope that you'll join us again next week for another next level love story. And please, if you're feeling moved, take a moment, share your takeaways in the chat. What did you learn about love today? Until next time.